Sometimes a game comes out and it can be overwhelming, both for good and bad reasons. And sometimes a game drops and it's rather underwhelming instead. And then sometimes you get a game that's somehow both in its own ways, with some aspects feeling like they went too far and some not having gone far enough. So what do you even call that kind of experience? Is it just being whelmed? I mean, I doubt it's that simple. I do have a lot of opinions on this, so to kick the year off right, we're going to take a look at a somewhat recent release, compared to my standards, at any rate, and a follow-up to a prior review. Join me as we take a closer look at the game that whelmed me, Rune Factory 5. Greetings everyone, I am the hipster Snek, and despite some accounts to the contrary, very much still alive. And today, we're going to be taking a look at Rune Factory 5, released in the English-speaking world in 2022, including a PC port some months later, to mixed reviews. But does it deserve that? Let's find out. Jumping right into it, we begin the game as an amnesiac named either Ares if male or Alice if female, but you're welcome to change the name accordingly. Immediately, we're recruited by the organization named SEED, and I don't know if it's an acronym or not, it's never addressed. It's always capitalized though, but I don't know. Anyway, we become a ranger and our job is to guard the outpost town of Rigbarth, which just rolls off the tongue, Rigbarth.
Honestly.
A small town that is under no significant or apparent threats, but hey, rent is free, so there's that. So get out there and plant some turnips, hero. So let's immediately stop that train of thought and shift to graphics, because this Rune Factory game is in 3D, except so is Tides of Destiny, and honestly I felt like Tides might have had a more consistent look despite being 10 years its elder. I know my PC is basically a potato with some jumper cables tied to it, but running at highest settings made this struggle a little, particularly in the lighting engine, namely around character faces. The lighting just doesn't seem to know what to do with itself in those contexts, and performance suffers as a result. The world is one large continuous zone that loads in basically all at once as soon as you fire the game on. So the first time you step outside your bedroom, which is an enclosed zone similar to a dungeon in that respect, it all comes lagging to a crawl for a very, very long loading period before it levels off and normalizes again for the duration of your playtime. Then when you close the game and reopen it, you'll have to do it again. The overall world design is fine, and some of the dungeons do have really cool things happening in them. That doesn't stop me from thinking that this really should have been more. Or at least it should have retained the overhead view from past Rune Factory installments. That at least let me see what was happening behind my back at all given times. The character designs are good though, I must say, and some of the bosses are really well designed too. And audio-wise, I really have to give RF5 its gold medal. This might be the best soundtrack that Rune Factory as a series has ever had. While I always really liked Rune Factory music, on the whole, 5 takes it to a new level. Special shout out to Kelve Lava Caves for its absolutely awesome dungeon theme. The voice cast is bringing in A+ effort all around too. Just really well done across the board, and I'm super glad to have it. Special shout out to Christina V's role of Fuka, who doesn't even really speak exactly so much as growl and bark before getting a built-in multiplexing service afterward. I thought that would be kind of annoying, but I actually found it kind of endearing. The sound effects are precisely what you'd expect from a Rune Factory game, cartoonish and somewhat slapsticky in presentation to prevent it from getting too edgy, but it's satisfying, cathartic when you're wailing on a boss. Just solid presentation overall. Now for the gameplay, and oh boy, strap in because I have a lot to say. If this is your first exposure to Rune Factory, I'll start you off from the top for your benefit. You begin your day each in-game day in your bedroom, and you can do anything you feel like doing, because you're not actually obligated to do anything that you don't feel expressly like doing. For example, you can buy a forge and a crafting table to make weapons and armor, or cooking stations to prepare dishes. Or you can go outside and tend to your fields, which increase in number as you progress the story. You can smash stones with a hammer or chop logs and stumps with an axe to get the material stone and lumber for expansions to your room and any building in Rigbarth. which you are given absolute authority over, even. Or you can ignore all that and just go beat up some monsters. You're well within your right to make of each day what you will. Your only limitation is that blue bar on your HUD, the rune point bar, or your RP. This is your energy or stamina to use as you will, and any use of your crafting tables, actions taken outside of, say, running or just lifting objects or talking to people, is going to cost you at least a little every time you take them. The more you use a particular talent, the more your skill level goes up, and thus your talent in that field continues to grow. Also, skill levels up your stats overall. This is an action RPG after all, and thus you grow stronger in that respect too. You also have traditional level ups from gaining experience points by defeating monsters. Monsters also drop materials which can then be used in crafting. So you see, everything feeds into everything else except when they don't. More on that later. In this installment, the camera follows behind the protagonist, and thus, most dungeons are formatted more into pathways and hallways rather than the usual set of large arena-like zones that made up older Rune Factory titles. I'm genuinely uncertain how I feel about this, as I feel both styles play just fine. As a result of this, traps like Indiana Jones-styled rolling boulders or swinging pendulum blades and fire geysers are more common here than they were in past games. Alas, I feel these kinds of environmental hazards have two major problems. First being that they're a bit underutilized, not many dungeons have a whole lot happening in them mechanically. Second, fire geysers do percentile damage, so they feel extremely overpowered even in in-game legs of the game. But hey, maybe you don't feel like doing that right now, so you want to talk to the townspeople instead. You can make friends in this game too, and for the first time in these games can marry regardless of what character you pick to main. And this actually leads into a major concern I have with the game. They spent so much time concerning themselves with making it possible to marry anybody you want, they failed to make anybody worth marrying. I admit, that sounds harsh, I know. But of the 12 possible options, 6 guys and 6 girls, I found one of each to be worth it. Those being Murakumo and Ludmila. The others tend to be super boring and seem to just share the same collective brain cell between them. And maybe that's enough for some people, but the options felt really uninspired. In every Rune Factory game, I found at least one option was worth my effort. Even the very first, which I maintain is the weakest of the series overall. But I'm not sure I can say that here. In fact, a ton of fantastic designs are spent on non-marriage candidates. I was more than ready to put in the work for Elsia or Misasagi, but they're not even options in the first place, so nuts to that. To top it all off, it's hinged on these really inconvenient event systems, which you have to trip without even meaning to, and they can railroad you until the event's completion, even if you have zero interest in that character at all. You can't cancel these. Fun fact, when I first played the game, I accidentally tripped an event for Riker, but the event gave me no clues on how to actually finish it out. So I went most of the story campaign with it on my menu, and me not knowing how to be done with it. And the dating system is back from Rune Factory 4, but it's more luck-based now, if you can even believe that. Even at Affection 8, Ludmilla would not react when I tried to bring the prompt up, specifically because the event was still running in the background. Even beyond that, I don't like random luck being a major mechanic in the game, but that's pretty much all the dating game is hinged upon. Well, my dating life notwithstanding, the game begins to run into a lot of yes, but moments as well. You can get the main story going pretty quick. In fact, you'll probably find yourself flying dungeon to dungeon because the overall difficulty curve between each is relatively gradual. Also, the random treasure chests dot the fields and caves and dungeons, and oftentimes they'll offer up relatively strong gear earlier than you can just make it. So if you're grinding for forging and crafting skill levels even a little bit and getting recipe bread, yes, unfortunately I have to report recipe bread is back because more RNG is definitely what this game needed, you'll be more than prepared moving dungeon to dungeon. Unlike many past Rune Factory titles, there are no fields in the dungeon zones. Instead, you unlock different farm dragons, comparatively small dragons that have farming fields on their backs somehow. These will also be home to your barns to house monsters in. Oh, that reminds me, because I almost forgot this mechanic exists at all. You are a ranger in Seed, so you're given a capture spell which you can use to temporarily align wild monsters to expand your party, or to capture them in the name of a set of unique bounty missions which raise your Seed rank. Want to guess how much the game uses this system? 12. Literally. There are precisely 12 of these missions in the entire game. By endgame, you can easily do them all, and all you'll get for it is a small fistful of gold for your trouble and different seed patches, which grant certain small passive benefits when equipped. It's just kind of tacked on to the game, and frankly, after I did the tutorial for it, I forgot it was in the game until I was almost completely done with my playtime. I mean, you can redo these quests, but there's no reason to. And once more, I repeat, there's only 12 in the entire game, meant to be done gradually from the start of the story to the endgame. This was a major selling point for this installment to help differentiate it from Rune Factory 4. I just want to be clear on what a letdown this is, because that is precisely the problem. The combat is good, but it's not the major step up that we had in Tides 3 and 4. The exploration is good, but Tides did something very similar and had jumping puzzles, which this game doesn't. Crafting systems are good, but it's basically just the same one that we had in 4. The characters have good designs, but not too much personality, making them inferior to what we've had in previous installments. Rune Factory 5 is, by all definitions, competent, but that's it. It's not amazing, but it's not the big step forward that we had hoped that it would be, and it hasn't been the big step that we've had between installments thus far. It was not moving from Rune Factory 3 to Rune Factory 4, where it felt fundamentally different, upgraded in every capacity. This feels like a modified version of 4, repackaged with minor, mostly graphical upgrades and called an entirely new installment. And it does get worse, but this is going to get into spoilers. Please, skip ahead to the timestamp I have listed on screen right now if you don't want to be spoilered on a relatively new game. I'll wait here a second and let you make up your mind. Alright, we good? Good. Let's cut to the heart of the matter. There is no in-game content in the game. There are lots of dungeons and such, and most have their own thing going on, even if several don't. But you can get there pretty darn fast, and after the credits roll, there's a grand total of 1 challenge dungeon, that being the Rigbarth Maze. You unlock it via an order, of all things, but then when you get there, it's just copy-pasted maps from other dungeons with slightly restructured enemy spawns and a couple bosses peppered in. On top of that, it's only 20 floors total. The only thing in it that posed any serious threat to me was the yellow dragons due to their enormous HP pools, but once I made a weapon that could cleave through it, everything else in the dungeon was just too weak to compete. I never felt the need to grind my skill levels to a point where I was the best at everything. I was easily able to beat the game with crafts and weapons in the 60s skill level wise, and just over 100 in terms of my base level, which is less than I'm making it sound like. I never did get the dating events to occur until many hours past that point, and it became very grindy very quickly because the friendships level up slower than Rune Factory 4's. And once you clear the Rigbarth Maze, you'll just be grinding for either completion's sake or for grind's sake. There's nothing new to discover or to do, and the final boss of the story is a giant skeleton fish. Yes, I'm being serious right now. It's a big, giant, spoopy fish. And eventually you'll be so powerful, you won't even be able to grind it out anymore. You'll hit it, empty half its HP in one hit, and it will break the AI, it will freeze, and you won't be able to defeat it anymore. In fact, on the whole, I found more technical issues with this game than any other Rune Factory, including a couple of crashes and broken boss AIs. It's frustrating because, well, let's get back on track here. Rune Factory 5 is, in summary, a sequel that is, at its best, iterative. An incremental step forward that comes with some drawbacks and flaws. Maybe this was unavoidable due to the proper Rune Factory devs shuttering after 4's launch. And I have to say this, despite the frustrations and the setbacks, I still clocked in over 60 hours and deeply enjoyed my better part of them. Only one dungeon was at all imbalanced, but the overall experience was just more Rune Factory, and I like Rune Factory a lot. All I wanted from the experience was, indeed, more Rune Factory, and that's what this is. It took zero risks and pushed no envelopes and wasn't exactly the most ambitious project of the franchise, but it was good. The very definition of what a 7 out of 10 game is. Honestly, the best thing they could do at this point is accept the mixed reviews, knock $20 off the price point, and be honest with what it is. It was taken out of the oven too soon. A lot of the hours are going to be grinding skill levels like in early DS installments. The cast isn't using their full potential, but when it isn't holding the game back, it is a fun adventure. The story moves the world of Rune Factory forward in a cool way. Future video of lore on Rune Factory is in the works, by the way, and that's all great. But mechanically, that's the problem. I'm just whelmed. It was overwhelming in some ways and underwhelming in others, but on average, whelmed. If you like Rune Factory already, you'll like this, and if you didn't, this one will absolutely not change your mind. That's all there is to it. This has been the Rune Snek, bringing another sweet to light so you guys can decide for yourselves if it's worth your hard-earned Snek coins. What do you think? You're going to get Rune Factory 5? Did you already? Who's your waifu and/or husbando? And did you think I was fair? Let me know in the comments. If you haven't yet, be sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button, because I'm a shill and a crippling addiction to pizza keeps me going. Join me here each week for more reviews and the Tomodachi Bros Review Podcast Season 2 coming soon. And this is the Hipster Snek signing off, and I will see you there.